what in your mind is the difference between startup founders and entrepreneurs, let's say in the SMB, they want to just start a solid business and make a decent living, probably buy themselves a job. What's the difference between the two for you?
I think one has a playbook, one doesn't. I mean, I'd like to believe, through Startups.com, we're starting to provide more of a playbook. If you're entrepreneurial and you've got risk tolerance and grit, you can start a Subway franchise and do 2 or 3 of them. But again, they're feeding you the playbook to say, here's the geography, here's the bricks and sticks, here's all the supplies, here's the supply management. You still have to be entrepreneurial in the sense that you're willing to take that risk and you're willing to start a business. There's some pretty specific guide rails and instructions on how to start that business. I think the impact and the opportunity is commensurate with the amount of guide rails your startup does or doesn't have, right? If you're willing to wade into the abyss, the deepest, darkest waters of the unknown with a massive idea, most of the time you'll sink, but you could build something massive, right? Not to say that you can't buy a Subway franchise and then 6 Subway franchises and then, all of a sudden you've got all these different franchises under your belt, right? But it's just a totally different path.
How much do you agree with my sentiment that if you want to make good money, steady money, don't go into startups? If you want to make potentially amazing money, but the potential of failure is significantly high, the asymmetric upside is there, but you're doing things innovative, it's new, it's fresh, you're on the razor's edge of success and failure pretty much every day. But if you want to make money and you want that security, do not do startups. What do you think about that?
Startups are so glamorous now. I mean, you know that. They didn't always be. They weren't always glamorous, right? The access to build a startup is that much more available, right? Your ability to, there's low code, no code. You can outsource development. You can build MVPs in Figma. That friction to build it is far lower. And all these stories, a lot of the stories people read are the sensational stories about the people that, create Snapchat. I don't always think that's the best path. I was having a conversation with my wife who has a really cool startup skincare brand, right? All organic skincare. And she was like, we were talking about what makes a great founder. I said, yes, there's got to be a level of talent, intelligence, ingenuity, but there has to be this bizarre fortitude. And that fortitude can come in 2 ways. One piece of the fortitude is you're so obsessed at a core level with proving your idea can work, you just won't fucking stop. That's one. The second would be the consequences are so high, right? You've got to pay bills that you won't stop, right? There are 2 components of fortitude. So if you don't have consequential or obsessive fortitude, it's hard to be able to build a big startup. It's not for hobbyists. If she had to figure out how to pay bills with her all-natural skincare business, her need, want, desire to go out everywhere she could and get products in front of people would go up exponentially. Or if she couldn't sleep at night because she was so frustrated with the toxic chemicals that are in so much skincare, it'd be the same situation. I look at somebody like Bill Gates in this, right? When we talk about kind of the 2 components of fortitude. Bill Gates did grow up well off, did go to a private school. Seemingly, he grew up in a relatively stable family. So it wasn't a situation where Bill was trying to make, and he did, make astronomical wealth for his safety. But he was so obsessed with changing the way people interface with computers that he would fucking die on that hill. And again, there are those 2 kinds of different founders. And sometimes it's relatively blended, but it does take that obsessive fortitude, or in some cases, those dire consequences, actually push through and build a startup to the size that is needed or that you want.
In my experience, all of the relatively successful startups I've been a part of, and I'd like to tap into the breadth of your experience in a moment, but I started off with that obsession. Can I solve this problem? And then you get a little bit of traction and you start thinking, okay, this might be something significant. But then there always came a time where I had to go all in on some dimension. Maybe it was in finances. Maybe it was saying, no, the cost of opportunity skyrocketed. You just had to make a lifestyle decision. I moved to China. It
Mhm.
was a really tough thing. That's my experience. How much of that would you relate to, or how much of that have you seen?
You always get to that fork in the road, and spending my life coaching founders, there is, and you're looking to read the tea leaves, you're looking for the signals. So, it's a cliche phrase, but you always want to run to something, not away from something. If you're building a startup because you hate your job, it's not going to work. If you're building a startup because you're obsessed with that problem, the likelihood of it working goes up exponentially. But going back to those startup inflection points, if you've got the resources and mental acuity and energy, sometimes knowing when to say when is really important. And yes, every startup founder to a degree questions their path, even folks that have built massive companies. But you do have to listen to that internal dialogue and evaluate, is this worth it? How bad do I want it? If it's something that you are truly passionate about, that dialogue will be a little quieter. When that internal dialogue, when that monologue goes and starts getting louder and louder and louder, listen to it. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it's time to hang it up and try something else, which is a shame. But in just like anything else, it's very hard to close the doors on something you're so passionate about. But I would advise any young or new founder, the ability to do that will allow you to get the energy and the education to come up and try something else if you find something else in the market.
Yeah, that's good. Let's go back to your